Welcome to the masterclass. So, this masterclass is about restoring security and safety within oneself. Before we start, where in your life are you tolerating things you receive discomfort from? Can you write that down in the chat? A family situation that keeps on repeating? Is it something at work? What is a situation that you feel emotionally unsafe right now? Thank you for sharing. Tension and fear. Love and hate relationship. Okay. Why do I ask these questions? Yeah, we're gonna be a bit vulnerable here in this session. So if you watch the replay, also take notes and ask yourself these questions. Because I'd love for you to understand what this has to do with being comfortable in the body, with embodiment, and the situations you may be in that allows you to feel this ease, discomfort, that you don't feel home in your body, opening up and being rejected. Yes, there you are. I love you guys. Good. Why do I ask? Because for myself, I had to discover what are my needs. What are the things that are important to me that are actually not represented in my relationships or in my work or in my family or in my friendship or in the environment that I am, okay? So first, I want you to write down that this is all tied, the experiences that we allow in our lives have to do with how we see ourselves, with the level of our self-worth. So I want you to write down self-worth. Why am I allowing myself to be in a situation where I feel not heard and where I feel not seen? Why? Why? And I know this is a question that will be answered over time. I just want you to have for yourself some questions where you can move forward with. And I want you to write down that there are six needs. 6 needs, okay? The first need is a need for certainty. The second need is a need for variety. The third is a need for growth. The fourth need, so first is certainty, variety, growth. The fourth is significance. The fifth is love and connection. And the sixth is contribution. Now, why am I sharing all of that with you? See, and to share a bit more about myself, I grew up in a family where my father was more of he was not open about his emotions, right? And my parents, they divorced very young in my life. So unknowingly, unconsciously, I was building up fear of abandonment and fear of rejection. And I didn't know that that was a player in my life only when I went through divorce. That only came up later on in my life. And I'm going to share with you why that happened or what's the natural way of conditioning for humans and how our subconscious mind works, that we can experience things that only appear later in life, that we become aware of later in life. So I've been working through a lot of fear of abandonment and fear of rejection. And that allowed me to really, to a certain extent, free myself from the stories that I was telling myself and from the energy that was still living in my body. The fear that was living in my body. Okay, so these patterns, they were only triggered when I after was going through divorce and started dating again. And perhaps you experienced that as well, that you went through divorce, you started dating again, and this is something that throws up things from your childhood that you didn't even know that existed, right? Can you relate with that, what I'm sharing here? Yeah, so this is the reason I know you come in here and you need a bit of vulnerable, right? In order to open up and to allow to arrive here. So I'm sharing my own experience so you know, okay, we are all human. We all go through these things. I don't need to shame or to blame or to feel guilty about it, right? This is the place where we can understand what happens in the body is something that is not really taught for us how to deal with, right? The whole society is more focused on solving solutions, fixing things, overthinking, rationalizing, hiding, wearing masks, okay? So I discovered there were moments that I was not listening to my body. In the situations that you share here in the chat, work and love relationships, tension and fear, love-hate relationship, opening up and being rejected, probably what you experience is, okay, how do I deal with that? Right? In society, we are shown that it's not safe to go there and to allow us to feel those emotions. What we've been told is to numb them, to hide them, to push them down, to what are the things that you know, right? There, people start with drugs, they start to drink, they start to smoke, they have excessive behavior just to cover up these emotions, right? And I know from experience, people are highly emotional creatures. And I want you to understand where that comes from, and I will drop into that later, okay? So going back to the needs, all these needs that I share with you in the list, what need is very important for you that you see, actually, you know what? My need for contribution is important, or my love and connection. For me, love and connection has always been very important in my life, right? And these certainties, they come in a specific order. They come in a specific order of how they steer us. Okay, so these needs, for me, when the first time I heard about that, I really wasn't aware that needs and neediness is something different. Can you see that for yourself? You may have needs, right? The needs are written on your paper, the 6 needs, meaning that if you're in relationships where there's not really an answer to your need for love and connection, you will feel like something is missing. If you're doing a job and you're really able to contribute, you will feel like something is missing. And then when we go in society, you've been told to listen, you've been told to do what is told to you, to take the attention outside of yourself, and over again, you withdraw from setting up that connection within yourself that actually is showing you the way, that actually is telling you, hey, I need to listen. I need to listen to myself at this layer. So the situations that you described in the chat, you feel discomfort within your body, okay? Now, I also want you to write down, what are the stories that you tell yourself when it comes to this situation? What are the stories that you tell yourself? And if you are okay, please write them in the chat. See, when I was going through these situations where I was feeling a lot of fear of abandonment and fear of rejection, I was telling myself a story in that particular relationship, or and then I was solving the pattern, so it came back over and over again until I learned the lesson, right? I was not seeing my self-worth. I was telling maybe I'm not good enough, right? And so what I was doing was compensating for that feeling of lack within me. I was looking for love because that was one of my needs. I was looking for connection. I was also looking for attention, for validation, because I didn't know that I could find that within myself. I thought I needed the other in order to give that to me. So I was totally in contraction in my body, in restriction. I was not listening to my body at all. And I was forcing the situation because in my mind, I knew what the solution was. And so I was actually changing things or speaking in a way or adjusting my behavior in order to make that solution a possible outcome. Can you see that for yourself? That's behavior that we are pulled to because we're actually operating from our wounds, right? From the conditioning. You can also say shadow, you can say wounds, you can say whatever it is, okay? And it's also, I want you to understand that this is an invitation. All the situations that you go through that you don't feel well in, that you feel discomfort in, it's a pure invitation. In my world, there's no mistakes. There's only lessons to learn. There's no failure. There's only failure if you stop, right? If you say, I'm doing nothing at all, I'm just, no. Well, but then again, there's still a lesson underneath. So the word failure is something that's out of my vocabulary. There's only lessons to learn. So what we are invited and what we are not taught, okay, is that when we feel discomfort, that we have to listen. What's going on there? What's going on there? So for yourself, when I asked you to write down what are the stories that you tell yourself, have you been writing them down? And we're not going to solve that right now. Right? I just want you to understand that perhaps a story that you tell yourself, I want you to become aware of it. And only by becoming aware of it, you can start to see a pattern. And by you starting to see a pattern, you at some point when you train yourself, when you become more comfortable, or instead of, you know what, and when you go through this process, it's such a beautiful process, because in the beginning, I was like, oh, I'm doing it again. I'm doing it again. Why can't I change? And I was judging myself, right? I was judging myself. I was condemning myself. Like, why do I feel this fear? And then I was pulled back into these coping mechanisms for not feeling the fear anymore. Okay? And I can laugh at it because I felt such a liberation from two things. From the fact that I could observe at some point what was happening. Okay? And then from the other part, that I really love for people to know as well is that we can learn from these emotions. And there's a way to process them. And knowing how to do that and learning how to do that, your internal world starts to become a door that opens, like a book that opens. And every time you turn a page, every time you turn a page, and in the beginning, when the book is this thick, you think, oh my God, there's no ending. But then again, at some point, you move forward and you really get to learn about yourself. You get to learn about your needs. You get to learn about what am I tolerating in my life. You get to learn what am I allowing in my life, right? And when you get to understand what am I allowing in my life, you can ask yourself a question. Do I really want that? And then you can say, no, I don't want to feel this way, but yes, I want that person, or I want this marriage, or I want this job, or I want this house, or whatever the thing is, right? And then with this, we can see what the pattern is about. Okay. So the first thing why I asked you to write down those needs and those questions is because, and I want you to write that down as well, we need to level up our self-worth. And for women, I love the word feminine self-worth. And for men, I love the word masculine self-worth. Because we grew up in a society that doesn't want to really get to know that our self-worth is low, right? We've been told to listen. So what we learn over time, that another opinion, another person's advice is more important than our own. When you do that over and over again, and that's what I was doing, I was really looking for answers and solutions outside of myself. I was connecting so much value to what people told me, their opinions, over my opinion. Isn't that interesting? Because I thought these people love me, these people know me, and they want the best for me. And then later on in life, I was taught only listen to the people who are living the life that I want to live. So I had to disconnect from needing, and that was neediness, okay? That was really needing to have answers from outside of me to confirm how I would feel inside of me. If I could accept it, if I could not even accept it, if I could say, ah, yeah, this confirms me, right? And why was that? There was a big lack of trust within my own, into trust within myself, trust within for my own intuition, trust for my own observation. I didn't know myself. I only knew my conditioned self. See, I want you to understand that from the ages 0 to 7, our subconscious mind is like a sponge. And whatever happens to us with a lot of repetition and a lot of emotion gets deeply stored in the subconscious mind. Okay? There's two parts of the brain that are responsible for that. And that's the amygdala, that's responsible for the emotions. And then you have the hippocampus, that's responsible for the long-term and the short-term memory. Those two together, they make sure that our subconscious mind works like a huge emotional database. And then through life, that's so if you're surrounded, no, not if, whoever surrounded you when you grew up from the age of 0 to 7 had a big impact to condition your subconscious mind. Okay? And still later on, okay, when there's situations with authority and we are conditioned to be susceptible for that, right? People who are adults, they tell us that they know better, tell us from the perspective of a child, depending on your environment that you grew up in, okay? It can be grandparents, it can be a teacher at school, it can be an uncle, an aunt, it can be anybody you looked up to. They can have just told one sentence and it draw your attention and you didn't forget. It may be, and possibly, it just has been their own limiting belief, their own perception of the world, their own hurt that was speaking, their own projection, their own mirroring about how they see or how they saw life, how they saw things. And when you experienced it, for us, it feels so real because you're full immersed in that emotional body, right? Those people were projecting emotions onto you because they didn't know how to deal with it. They were projecting stories onto you, right? You have to work hard for the money. Or perhaps the thing is, and I've been seeing that from my own, I'm a mom, I have 3 children. And at some point I understood, they don't listen. They just copy my behavior. And I was like, oh my God, that's something that, I was really, that was a deep realization for me. So discovering that I was experiencing, and also in my marriage before, I'm open about that, to share that, in my marriage, I didn't know about all of this. Okay, I didn't know what's the power of the mind, or of course, I knew about emotions. I didn't know how to process them. I was not able to in-depth understanding them. I was not seeing the patterns. I didn't know about conditioning. I was I was just living my life, experiencing reality as real. Okay, so what I did, because I was also and I see that for many people in society, right? Because that's just how society is set up. That's how conditioning is set up. Women are told to be successful in life, women have to copy masculine behavior. So when I studied and I decided to go for a job, as a child, I decided I wanted to be an architect. Okay. So I did then engineering to have more solutions. And at some point I was, you know what? All this knowledge is theoretical. I didn't even know how to build. Right. So I said, okay, let me go and work at a contractor, general contractor. That's where I definitely learn how to build. Yeah, I did. Right. And it was a highly masculine environment. And for me, in order to be successful, what I did was looking at my male colleagues who were successful, and I thought, let me copy their behavior. Right? So I was pressuring myself. I was overworking myself. I was working 80 hours a week for months, right? And because I thought I needed to prove myself, right? I was not approving of myself. I thought I needed to prove myself. So all that behavior, I was so in my masculine. And when women are in their masculine energy for a long time, it allows us to experience a huge burnout, a huge disconnect. Okay. So being that masculine, coming from that, recovering from burnout, still wanting to control in the sense of wanting to fix, wanting to solve, right? Control can be really heard as being manipulative. No, I don't mean that, okay? And in a sense it is, right? Because you're convinced things need to be a specific way. So you're actually steering or pulling threads because you think that's a solution, right? Okay. So in my marriage, I was sadly enough blaming and shaming my ex-husband. I was feeling not seen. I was feeling not heard. I was not feeling heard. I was not feeling seen. I felt misunderstood. And because of that, I felt frustration, irritation, also resentment, entitlement. Oh man, how I was feeling entitlement for specific things, right? And I didn't know about that at all. I was unaware, right? So, and then having the dynamic of me as a woman being in my masculine energy, I also didn't allow my ex-husband to step into his leadership because I thought I had specific reasons to think why that wouldn't work anyway, right? So I was not even giving him the opportunity, right? And we were in a deeply inverted, polarized relationship, marriage. And why I share that with all of you is because all of that has an effect on how we feel in our body, on how we communicate or not communicate emotions, right? So giving you that list of those needs, I want you to have that besides, because I want you to understand for yourself, yes, you are worthy to feel there are specific needs that you want to be reciprocated no matter what, right? You're worthy to live a life that aligns with what matters to you. And those 6 needs help me to understand, okay, in some areas, it was allowed, right? Because depending on the dynamic you're in, you will think that you are just too much by expecting the bare minimum, right? So if you discover that for yourself, have compassion for yourself, okay? Have compassion because, okay, this is something that we have to work on, that you can work on. And we do that by leveling up our feminine and our masculine self-worth. Okay. Also, one of the dynamics that was happening in our marriage was that I felt over-responsible. At some point, we went through problems and we decided that we will find a solution. And we excluded divorce, okay? So what happens then, right? When people are not seen or not heard, both of us, right? I was not understanding other needs about my ex-husband that were very important for him because I felt so troubled by my own misconception and the sort of misseeing what we were going through, right? So when you see your worth, you won't overgive or put yourself last. Of course, it's give and take, right? There's periods where you will be the more strong one or where your partner will be the more strong one, the stronger one. But then again, it's this give and take, there's a balance. But when it's totally out of balance and you put yourself last for years, then there's work to do on your self-worth level, okay? On your self-esteem. And this is a gift. I tell you, this is a gift. Okay? Because if you're continuously in a state where you're not seeing your worth, you allow yourself to be in situations where you feel emotionally unsafe. because your needs are not met and you don't know how to fill your own needs. We can do that. I had to learn to give all these things to me. Right? How do you know that? How do you do that? Right? First, you need to have the words or the recognition or the awareness to see things. And then when you see things, you start to really understand that you can recognize specific things, recognize patterns. You start to understand that you can observe things without being deeply emotionally engaged with it. And this is where your power is. Okay? This is where your power is. See, thoughts are the language of the mind. The stories you tell yourself, the narratives. Feelings is the language of the body. This is how the body communicates with us. The body shows us where there's flow because you're happy, right? You have laughter, you have fun, you can relax. There's joy, there's love. And when there's discomfort and dis-ease and more feelings of anger, resentment, fear, guilt, shame, you're actually engaging with stories that are not really for our highest good, that are not really in alignment with the pure, and that are not aligned with your authentic self. When you tell yourself stories over and over again, it's about becoming aware of it and understanding, okay, why am I listening to these voices in my head? Is that true? Whose story am I repeating? Do I really believe that? And this is where vulnerability comes in. This is where honesty comes in. To say, you know what? Actually, I don't want that anymore. And having that guts to just be brutally honest with yourself and say, you know what? I've been tolerating things that actually are not aligned with how I want to live my life. Perhaps you made decisions like I did. I made decisions that I thought, you know what? This is truly, truly what I want for the rest of my life. Yet those decisions were made on assumptions of dynamics that I was not through seeing, right? Because I didn't see myself. I didn't see myself. And those emotions, and I really was in there for a long, long, long time, right? I was really there in for a long time. So I have to, you know what, going through this journey, it's so easy to judge yourself, right? We don't do that. We have compassion. I need to have compassion for myself, right? I was doing the best that I could to the awareness that I was having at that moment. And understanding this and seeing this, we also know that the people that we were surrounded by when we were children, if they knew differently, mostly likely they would have behaved differently as well, right? Because if you can see the solution and you're really suffering, you do change. You do change, right? You're not going to repeat things, right? Unless you just really don't know, right? Or you're too fearful to go there, right? You're so fearful to be vulnerable. Okay. So this is my question for you. Please allow yourself to be vulnerable with yourself. Allow yourself to be honest with yourself, okay? And do that in an environment where, even if it's you with you, where you have compassion for yourself, when you know that you're safe, when you see yourself, and when you hear yourself. Because this in itself is act as acknowledgement for who you truly are. That you see yourself, and that I wanted to talk about that later on, but we can do that right now as well, right? It's having a conversation not only with yourself right now, yet also with your inner child. That's you creating a safe space for the both of you is all that you need in order to understand, okay, you know what? This is the direction that I'm going. Or this is the focus that I'm going to have. Or this is the end result that I am going to set up for myself. And gradually, step by step, right? Transmuting things in your life so you have more flow, so you have more joy, you have more laughter, you have more reciprocity for who you see yourself to be right now. Okay? So first is the level up from your self-worth, understanding your needs. The second thing is we have to learn to set boundaries. It's clear that I didn't know what boundaries were. Okay? The words, I only discovered what that meant later on in life, right? I had to translate it because I was taught about it in English and my mother tongue is Dutch, right? I don't even know what boundaries are actually in Dutch. So boundaries, yeah, you can have several translations for it. Then again, what I see how people use it in society is they use it as walls, like a hot wall. Okay. A boundary can also be a bridge. So what I want for you to see is, and I want you to write it down. What am I engaging with in life that is not to my highest good? What am I engaging with in life that is not to my highest good? And you don't have to answer that question at all right now. I just give them to you because next moment that you will be cooking, doing groceries, showering, walking, whatever the thing is, you will receive the answer. You will see crystal clear what is right now not a very healthy pattern for you that you maybe can not engage with anymore. That's the word. You don't have to reject it. You don't have to block it. See, that's where I want you to understand. It's how you engage with it. Okay? Because this in itself allows you to be in relationships that are codependent, right? Where actually you come from a wound and your partner comes from a wound, and then both you, I don't know if you have heard about the pain body before, right? Eckhart Tolle talked about the pain body, right? So it's like over time, your pain body wants to have this trigger again because then it goes back to sleep, is how he says it, right? And then it's when there's a period of peace, then all of a sudden there will be discussion about really nothing, right? And then it's just like to keep a specific pattern in place. Okay, so this is codependency. This is when you allow yourself to be vulnerable with yourself, you will start to see that pattern you will start to recognize it, right? You create emotional awareness because you will discover, okay, what am I feeling in my body? When does this feeling come up? When this happens, how do I act? What do I believe about all of this? Do I really want to continue to feed this pattern, right? And this is where you understand, okay, I can interrupt those patterns. And this is where we step into emotional intelligence. It's not only becoming aware what's happening, it's also learning what can I do to be the one that stops the buck by not continuing. And then from codependent relationships, you can move over time into interdependent relationships where you see your self-worth, where your partner sees his or her self-worth, and when you both create a third identity. A third identity, yes, right. The relationship in itself will then be that the additional thing that is created by you feeling whole, the other feeling whole, and then still learning lessons, right? But then there's you both see your value, meaning you won't engage in patterns anymore. Yes, you can still engage in those patterns, you can still experience them because it's deep in your subconscious mind, yet you will be able to see them and you will be able to recognize them to understand, what do I need to learn in order to not continue this pattern anymore? And when you do that over and over and over again, you will create trust within the relationship. You will create trust within yourself. Because all that I'm sharing here, I'm referring to relationship, right? For myself, I taught that on my own. I was coached, I was guided, right? And I didn't need to be in a relationship to learn all of this. Now, the beauty of this thing is what I was doing, I was learning to regulate my nervous system on my own, and I'm being guided by coaches. When you're in a relationship and you both want to work on this, you can set up co-regulation. Okay, and there's specific ways how to do that, specific techniques. There's a specific communication that comes with it. Vulnerable communication is a very beautiful way to speak open about it without blame, without shame, and to really set up this container of co-regulation that only will work if you know how to regulate yourself also without the other, right? Because otherwise you really have you have the dependency again, right? And you being able to regulate on yourself is because you understand the need for it for yourself, and you also see your worth. You know, it's you giving that to you. The regulation, you give that to yourself as your gift. You give that to yourself as your gift, right? Because on your own, you received generational patterns. We are all susceptible to collective patterns, societal, besides generational. There's also paradigms that comes from a country, from a specific culture you are in, right? From all that is portrayed, from all the Disney movies, that we have been watching, all the sitcoms, whatever the thing is, right? And we condition ourselves that way. So we have expectations, we have assumptions. And then when those not spoken out loud, right? You can really create like a wig in your relationship or a wig within yourself, the disconnection, the conditioned self that is underneath many, 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 many wet blankets. And then you have the condition, the authentic self, I mean. Then there's many wet blankets over the authentic self, and then you have, you know, what you experience is your conditioned self. Okay. So I see it like an onion, and every time you work on yourself, you do either you work on the thoughts that you have. We also work on the emotions, how we can feel them, how we can process them. You knowing how to be safe with that, guided. Every time you do that, you peel. And then you come to the center of the onion, right? That's what I call the authentic self. That's the true you. And that's unique. Everybody has their own unique, authentic, true self. And I refer to that as when you are born, you know, when you were a baby, you were full of joy, full of self-acceptance, full of self-love, confidence. You were not questioning yourself. You loved yourself. Whatever your needs were, you just showed them. And you knew you were worthy, that you would be taken care of. There was no question about it. You were creative, you were playful, you had laughter. When you cried, then you cried. There was no question. You were fully yourself. Okay? So that's what I see as your authentic self. You are, and as an adult, I want you to understand that these boundaries that we set come from self-responsibility. Come from self-responsibility. Because when I was blaming and shaming, I was not being responsible for my own emotions, right? So how can I explain that? Okay, let me ask you a question. When you're in a specific situation, do you use the words, "you make me feel"? Right? Do you use those words? Or your job, right? My boss, or this situation makes me feel this way. I feel so frustrated because of my work. Whatever the thing is, right? I just say that, right? Can you see that it's you allowing yourself to engage with that situation that causes you to feel that way? Right? There's a level of ownership that I was not seeing at all. There was a level of self-responsibility that I was not seeing at all because I thought the other one caused me to feel that way. No, I was allowing it to engage with it because my self-worth was low. So I was not seeing my worth. So I allowed myself to be engaged in situations that were not healthy for me at all. And then I was questioning why I was in that. And I was engaging it because I felt this neediness to prove or whatever the thing was that was lacking. Right? So those boundaries that I refer to are an act of self-love for ourselves. And also it's an invitation. It's actually, I call them a bridge. Okay? I call them bridges to build relationships with other people. And that you say, you know what? I'm very happy to have you in my life. And this is how I operate. This is my value. And if you can see me in that light, to see and hear me in that light, then the bridge is fully open, right? So for yourself, understand that just like I was sharing my own story, I wasn't knowing about boundaries because I also didn't know I needed boundaries, right? And also, when you step into this work and you get to understand like your codependent patterns and move into interdependent patterns, you also get to understand you create a specific container within yourself or in your relationship, okay? Now, when you're in a relationship, when there's a polarized relationship, like you are in your more feminine energy, you share about emotions vulnerably. As a woman, the gift of a woman is to share her emotions. That's your gift. I want you to write it down. The gift of a woman is for her to be able to share her emotions. Right? And then in a vulnerable way. You don't throw them on the table, you don't throw them onto people, okay? We do it from a self-responsible place, okay? So what we do when I help people is to really make a home for your emotions and how to do that. So you can feel them, you can process them, and you get to be safe doing so without rejecting yourself, without abandoning yourself, because you say, I don't want to feel that, so I'm not going to go there, and boom, you block it. And then what you do, you go sit in fear, or you go sit in guilt, or you go sit in shame, you go sit in blame. That's literally betraying the connection with yourself based upon your own conditioning. So, based upon our conditioning, we act in a way that we were treated that doesn't allow us to feel safe, yet it was familiar to us. So we keep on repeating it. Can you see that? Right? And what we do is literally, okay, how can I create for myself first? And then when you're in a relationship, how can I create an environment where I'm safe to feel my emotions and to vulnerably communicate about them, to know that you can communicate them in a way that, okay, that's my gift. Now, without expecting a specific outcome, how the other treats you is solely up to them. And this is where you can discover if the partner you're with has emotional capacity, right? Or has emotional maturity to deal with it. And this is what you can train, okay? This is what you have to train it for yourself first, to train yourself to become emotionally more mature, to expand your capacity to deal with your emotions in a very self-respective way. And when you do that for yourself, you will automatically understand if the other is able to meet you at that level or not. And by you doing so over and over again, can you see that you automatically raise your self-worth? Because you get to understand about your needs. You're being vulnerable, right? It's not about manipulation. This is not to, it can be used for manipulation, yet that will feel totally, what's the feeling? That will be repelling. If you use your emotions to manipulate, it will repel a person who also is aware about his or her self-worth. They won't tolerate it. They will say you're just manipulating, right? So if the person is able to receive you, then there can be this mutual compounding of really listening to one another's emotions and understanding, okay, wow, if my woman feels that way, do I really want that? Do I need to set boundaries? Okay, do I need to set boundaries for myself? Do I need to set boundaries, right? Then there can be a whole other discussion where you can experience that your heart is treasured as a high good, as the highest good of your partner, right? All by you learning how to communicate and how to feel your own emotions. Okay, so this is how you create emotional safety within a relationship container. And when you do that over and over again, you will understand at some point that you're in such polarized relationship that you don't even need to have boundaries because you're respected, you're seen, you're heard in your core, right? You don't need to explain it anymore because it will be felt. You don't need to rationalize it anymore. You don't need to, what's the word? Negotiate anymore. Because by you sharing your emotions, your partner will automatically feel, oh, I don't want you to feel that way at all. And why is that then? Oh, because of that. Oh, wait a minute. How can we move forward from this? Right? Can we set up a few sentences? Can we set up a few dynamics that we can move through it and that you really create, you transmute your emotion, you communicate, you be vulnerable with yourself, you speak about it, and then you create growth. Isn't that beautiful? This is how you create emotional safety and security within. Why? Because you learn to trust yourself, that every single emotion you feel is legit. Either when you say you feel judgment, right? And then you can ask yourself, why am I feeling judgment? Oh, everything is a mirror. You're judging yourself. Why am I judging the other person? Because that triggers something within me. And when you have a specific level of vulnerability, you can see, aha, I need to be honest with myself here. I'm comparing myself or whatever the thing is, right? And then you will automatically disentangle so many things inside of you that is not particularly a problem with the other. No, you discovered it's something within you. So you can, okay, take ownership again, right? And by you taking ownership, I mean, then we go into emotional depth. Okay, you really hone the skill of understanding your emotions, of how to deal with them, how to understand what are the dynamics underneath. You really get to understand what self-abandonment is about and what it is not. Because you build your self-worth, you build your trust, you build your certainty within. You actually are rebuilding the foundation within. That's what I also call the connection with your inner child, the connection with yourself, to truly embrace who you authentically are without putting up a mask, without hiding, right? Can you see that? Right? So for me, it has been very beautiful. So to really understand, okay, wow, I never, going through my divorce, I didn't know I was going to discover all of that, right? So this is what I mean about the self-growth journey. And I also got to understand, because some people, they ask me the question, yeah, but you divorced, right? Yeah, because I was not knowing all of this, right? And at some point, we also had a discussion, like it was very clear, like, okay, we have different directions and expectations from life, right? What I also was taught going through all of this in a relationship, when you start working on this, you can really do that together within the relationship container that you have. Okay. So I really wanted to be aware when there's a willingness from both parties to do so, from both sides to do so, you can really move through that together. Okay. Right. So, okay, the first thing was needs. The second thing was boundaries. The third thing was pattern recognition and breaking the cycles. Okay. Yeah, we moved actually into high quality relationships. And I also want you to understand, can you see by doing all of this that you drastically improved the relationship with yourself? Right? There's no bullshit anymore. There's no games that you can play. Yeah, perhaps you're tricked into an old pattern, and then it's like, I see. The thing is, you can, so we all, Joe Dispenza says that to when you're in your bed and over, thinking about your day, that you ask yourself, where did I allow myself to go unconscious? What was the thing that happened throughout the day that threw me off, right? That you just, all of a sudden, it was the job, it was the partner, it was whatever the thing is, right? That you allowed yourself to be totally identified with what's going on, that you felt fully in victim mode, that you saw yourself as a victim. This is happening to me, right? I don't want that. Well, everything is happening for you. And when you go deeper into understanding how all these dynamics work, it's actually you, it's happening by you, it's happening through you. See, I really understand that we are a soul having a temporary physical experience, and we have a marvelous mind, right? And I truly believe that our soul has unconditional love and unconditional acceptance for us, and it knows the grandest version of ourselves, and it speaks to us through intuition, through resonance, what is connected with joy, what is connected with relaxation, just a flow of life. And when we go into the opposite direction, we create friction, contraction, restriction, all of the opposite. We create this ease, like discomfort. Right? And so I got to see that we have lessons to learn. By you doing so, you step onto all the lessons that are here for you to learn in this lifetime. And I also believe that, I don't know how many lifetimes did I ran already before I came to all of this work. Perhaps 80, perhaps 800. I don't know, right? I don't know. So it's you allowing yourself to become aware and then deciding for yourself, you know what? I know there's something more to this life that is not told. And perhaps you have a connection to spirit, you have a connection to God, you have a connection to the quantum field, to consciousness, or you have a connection to yourself, right? There's nothing to change but self, meaning everything, there's no other. We go deep into my teachings there as well. We are so powerful with our minds that we don't even, our subconscious mind is so powerful that we don't even know all the things we set up for ourselves because we believe specific things about ourselves, negative beliefs, until we bump into them over and over again and then get to something else is going on. This is why I decided at some point when I was experiencing this fear of abandonment and fear of rejection, I was like, I go to the root of this. I want to know where that comes from, right? I was like, out of the blue. So whatever happens to you with the big emotional impact triggers those patterns. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, you react totally differently than you thought how you would react, right? And this shows that there is something more underneath that is waiting to be discovered by you. That's what they call shadow. That's what they call the ego death. This is what they call, there's so many words for it. A tower moment. What is the other thing? There's such a beautiful word, and now I even made a video about it. It will come. It will come. All right. So I want you to see this is why we are set up, right? If we are not allowing us to go where we feel triggered, we will repeat the pattern that you were given. Right? And at some point I understood, okay, I really want, first, I had to learn how to prioritize myself. Second, I wanted to be an example to my children. Also, I wanted to be the mom that I love to be. And I was not behaving in that way, right? And then I also wanted to have a life that was set up with joy, with freedom, with doing what I want, or doing what I love. at least that, doing what I love, right? And then automatically it grows into your purpose, right? So I committed myself to that because I was like, you know what? I don't want to pass on these patterns to my children. And of course, to a certain extent, I have been doing that, right? And that's okay. That's okay, right? So it comes down to you learning your lessons and committing to yourself. How honest can be with yourself? Can you be with yourself? How self-aware can you be? What are your beliefs? And that honesty with yourselves allows you to build connection, to build trust, to build to build the capacity for you to listen to your intuition. You will receive downloads. You will feel in your body when something is for you and when it is not. That's your power. And you learn to ground yourself. You learn to move with that energy. You actually gain confidence by just you getting to know yourself at such a deep level. And the biggest gift from all of this is as well, by me doing the work on myself. Oh, I really get to understand so many things in society that are displayed in relationships, in family dynamics, within ourselves, the own dynamics within ourselves. All of that is just a mirror. And it's a gift to be able to see that. For me, it really is. Because, I can only show up in this world from integrity, right? And it allows me to be humble as well. Because we're all human, right? At some point, we get angry and it's like, oh, wow, interesting, right? So this is this back and forth over and over again, okay? So the high quality connection is also with yourself. And then this sets up, and that's the fifth point, this set up true fulfillment. I really love what I do. I love what I do, and I see and I hear people. Meaning, when you speak to me, or even without speaking, right? I'm building this capacity to be self-aware at such a high level for myself, my own standard, not from perfectionism. No, from inspiration. I love it. Because if I show up as the best version of me, I can only be an example. I can be that example to my children. I can be that example to my environment, right? And then you see your self-worth levels up, your quality of your relationships gets better. You also don't tolerate to be in job situations that are totally misaligned. You will understand, okay, this pay is so low, I'm not going to do that job anymore, right? You're not going to tolerate with specific things that are just not your in your alignment, in misalignment anymore. Okay? So what happens is that the external matches your internal. Okay? And this is where you have true fulfillment, that you can really live as your authentic self. So what I work on is the four pillars is health, wealth, relationships, and purpose. And I also want you to understand purpose changes over time, right? Evolves over time. It's not that you have to choose one purpose, right? People think, oh, I have to choose what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. No, that evolves, right? As you evolve, that evolves automatically. And you will feel that, you will trust that, your intuition will be crystal clear. There will be no doubt anymore at some point, right? The doubt happens only when you're disconnected from yourself. That's all the clarity that you gain, right? So, and I'm going to read it here because I thought this was so beautiful. At some point I understood I'm not here to just build the bridge. build the bridge of this clarity, of this emotional safety, capacity, this body, mind, soul, heart alignment, right? I understood I am the bridge. I am the bridge, right? I receive the downloads just as you will receive when you go into this work, right? And I built myself by doing all this work to be the bridge, right? So my invitation for you is that I can only be the bridge, and you can decide for yourself if you do that as well, right? I can help you, I can guide you, I can, like every Saturday we have calls where I guide people through it, right? The quality of your life depends on your decisions. On you deciding, okay, I want to do that. I want to move through this. I really want to have that other experience of reality, because I am not finding any fulfillment if I look to the 3D world from this experience outside of me, right? The quality of your life improves when you heal your inner world, when you set up that connection with yourself and discovering how to do so. And you know what I do? I guide people through all of that. And the thing is, it's you are discovering the answers for yourself, right? Because I am just a bridge and a mirror. I understand, I see you, I hear you, I ask questions, and you will discover within yourself, oh, I hear it, I see it, you can observe it, you can treat it as a pattern, you don't have to live it anymore. Right? You don't have to, you will understand, you don't have to engage with it emotionally or even in a thought form. There are ways how to deal with it, not by bypassing with spirituality. I'm not talking about that, right? Not talking about that. Or bypassing with belief, right? Okay. There's ways for body to see. With all that we experience, there is an energetical residue that is still lingering in the body. Okay. By you knowing how to process that, you generate health health again in your life. Okay, perhaps you have a sensitive stomach, or you feel whatever the thing is. There's a pressure, there's a heaviness, there's a tightness, right? This contraction that you feel in your thoughts and in your feelings is translated in the body. Okay, by you doing this work, you allow your body to process and to release, and this is how you heal physically as well. If you have headaches, migraines, whatever the thing is, right? It will be released over time. This is why people heal themselves from cancer, okay? So if this is something that you say, you know what, this is actually where you really want to learn that the body is the transfer. The body is a transfer. Perhaps you want to write that down. The body is a transfer. I didn't know that for a long time. Until I started doing this and I got to understand it really is. It really is. Okay. And all the crises and all the contrast that you go through, it is every single one of them is a pure invitation to do the work for yourself. Right? So if all of this speaks to you, I'm going to share with you a document in the chat, because of course, I'd love to work together with you, right? I am very happy to share all this knowledge and information and wisdom over my YouTube videos and in calls like this and on my Saturday calls, right? The growth that you're looking for will actually happen when you decide for yourself, you know what, I'm going to do this, right? So in this document, what I did, I created a very short overview. So I have an 11-week program where we can work on it. It's called Truth Core Essence. And that's more a journey of getting to understand everything emotionally. Emotional intelligence, emotional awareness, emotional depth. That's over 11 weeks. We go into boundaries, into self-worth, into, what is it here? Safety, power, intimacy, self-expression, all of that, right? That's 3 months, so to say, right? Then that's in group. Then there's another container for 6 months where we go in depth, meaning I can work there with you extensively to decode all the narratives that you tell yourself, all the thoughts that are going through your head, all the emotions connected to it, the effect on your habits and behaviors, the effect on your actions, and then the results that you create in life, right? That's more of, okay, decoding the whole of the conditioning in order for you to understand, okay, wow, I can embody at this depth, right? And then just that happens when you work on it longer, right? You create bigger transmutation, you create bigger transformation, right? And then there's a way to work with me privately as well. It's just depending on how that's important for you, okay? I'm going to share with you that document. It's in there. Thank you for being here. And also, do you have questions that you want to have an answer to right now? You know, I can stop the recording and then we can discuss it openly. Okay, I'm going to do that. Thank you for everyone who has been watching the recording in the as a replay. You can reach out to me. I will leave information in the description, and then we can set up a call and a collaboration together. So excited for you to be on that journey.